What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions for Assassin's Creed Mirage. As I move to just kind of play more games in the series, as it has been quite some time really, having really only played 1 and 2, and then the most recent one, Shadows. But before we dive into all that, I do actually need to inform you guys that as strange as it may sound, I did actually receive a review key for this, despite it releasing a few years ago. The reason for that being, at the end of 2025, the game received a 1.1 update that added like a little expansion for free for people to check out, and when they released that, Ubisoft reached out and asked if I wanted a key for it, which I obviously accepted, and the main reason for that is that I had already decided to play more games in the series following my experiences with Assassin's Creed Shadows, which was sort of my jumping off point to get back into the series. And I suppose I could describe my experiences with Shadows as something akin to like culture shock, and if only for my own curiosity, I want to go back and just play more of the games that I haven't played here just to kind of wrap my head around the progression of it. But between the review key and honestly just the fact that this is a shorter game than the others made it seem like a decent place to start. And first impressions wise, that's probably the first thing I want to mention, and one of the main things that went around about Mirage is just that it is in fact not the sprawling mega long title that some of the other Assassin's Creed games are known for. Like, for instance, I know Odyssey is supposed to be super long as an example. This is a little more reined in, and you can kind of feel that pretty much immediately from like the pacing of the story and even the mechanics of it. Like, I know Assassin's Creed Shadows and some of the other games in the series have a bigger emphasis on, like, say, RPG mechanics, I guess, whereas here, individual things like the weapons or the outfit you're using will have, like, a big effect that you can upgrade, but that's it. There's no, like, extra tack-on effects to it, and honestly, I'm kind of enjoying that in the sense that it makes the assassinations a little more simple, I guess. So there has been that. Now, on top of that, the 1.1 update did actually add some content and things that I'll be able to experience and then include in my final review here. But this includes things like, for instance, a couple new difficulty modifiers. I can see why they added those, because I decided to just jump in on normal because that seemed to make the most sense at the time, but I might actually wind up increasing it just because, while playing as an assassin makes you a good assassin, obviously, I wasn't expecting to be so very, very overpowered in regular combat at the same time. But a little more to the point, like pretty much all the Assassin's Creed games, it takes us to a place in history, this time 9th century Baghdad, as we follow the Brotherhood of Assassins throughout their struggles with different factions along the way. In this case, we play as street thief turned assassin Basim, hunting down some relics that the Order is after, though it does look like this is another game that doesn't really focus so much on the events happening outside of the Animus. Shadows also didn't do that, and I'm curious where the sort of turning point for that was in the series, and I suppose I'll figure that out as I play more, but the rest of it seems pretty straightforward. In order to track down what the deal is with these artifacts you find that obviously seem a little out of place in time, after you first discover one, leading to the death of the Caliph, which is what forces Basim into hiding to become a Brotherhood assassin to begin with. But obviously you want to know what that thing is, and you're going to track down the other people in the Order that were after this artifact to both get some revenge for what they wound up doing to all of your friends and things after the fact, but also to figure out what is going on here. And I suppose that's an interesting enough premise. I will say Basim is a pretty solid character who seems intriguing enough, but the story itself is a little generic thus far otherwise. Now, another thing I was curious about here was the progression systems, because as mentioned, I know a lot of the other games have a heavier emphasis on their various RPG-ification of the series, if you will. Whereas, just like in most other respects, this game is also seemingly a little more reined in that sense, with progression coming down to your assassin rank, which goes up as you complete story from what I understand, but then there are also little bits of gear, like you get an outfit that will have an effect on it, you get a sword and a dagger, which each have an effect on them. But other than that, it's just like the raw mechanical how things work. Now, initially, following the classic training montage, you'll eventually get access to your assassin's blade and everything, and it looks like you can, for the most part, just assassinate everyone outright, with only a couple of instances of that not being the case thus far into the game. And then if you get spotted, you're forced into combat, but at least again on normal, combat is not a terribly difficult proposition. You can basically dodge out of the way of big attacks or parry the regular attacks, doing all of that and breaking through blocks, that kind of thing, is what is going to get you through an enemy's defense. And if you can completely cut through their defense, they get stunned and you can kill them outright if you didn't deal enough damage to kill them earlier than that. Some enemies can only be hit from the back, and there's a few variations, but overall it's a relatively simple system that I hope is fine for the length of this game, which is apparently on the fairly short side. But as interesting as all that is, none of it is actually my favorite thing about the game so far, and that actually surprised me a little bit. The thing I've enjoyed the most going into this is actually the city of Baghdad proper. Like, it's just a really cool place to run around, and while some of its mechanics are on the relatively shallow side, like for instance, you can pickpocket various people because of your background as a thief, and that's just like a real quick little mini game that's hard to mess up. Some of the rewards you can get from pickpocketing people are these tokens that you can then use to pay various factions for their services. Like, you can pay merchants to either give you discounts or cause distractions. You can hire mercenaries to cause distractions, or they can perhaps even clear your bounties, because if you are seen killing people out in public, they build up your notoriety. That's its own little simple system as well. But essentially, after you break off contact with a hostile combat situation, for instance, if you were seen by the general public doing this, or just in general in certain situations, it can lead up to more notoriety, which is effectively the world's reaction to you, the character. And you can even get to a point where the game starts sending like these elite units after you, which, even then aren't terribly difficult to kill on normal, honestly, but can get annoying after a little while. And there are obviously certain story objectives you can't do until you clear notoriety, so you can either go pay a token to have it cleared, or you can rip down wanted posters. And all that while exploring, solving some puzzles, finding chests with gear and things like that that have different effects. And for the most part, it seems to serve the shorter nature of the game fairly well. And thus far, a few hours in, my favorite thing I've been doing here is just running around the area that is Baghdad. Though there are some larger, more wilderness desert type areas outside of the city as well, and I'm curious to see just how expansive the map is given the scope of the game. But the city of Baghdad has been super cool to run around. But to start drawing this to a close so it's not excessively long before I actually review the title, first impressions for this are pretty good. Like, it's not blowing me away or anything. I've obviously seen games do a lot of stuff similar to this, but it's fun enough. It's also very clear that this game has a much bigger focus in terms of being a very broad experience the way Shadows was, which was just, in my opinion, trying to do too many things. And so I'm enjoying that, and also just exploring the city area. On the flip side of that, however, something I am concerned about is the actual story. So far, it seems fine for what the game is, but I was hoping for something a little more, engaging, I guess. Whereas thus far, it just kind of seems like the story here is just ticking off boxes. And then I am curious about kind of everything surrounding the main story. Like, for instance, there are these mini side quests called Tales of Baghdad that are short, but, have an interesting premise. Like, one was an abandoned village that seems to have been attacked by some sort of folk monster, according to the guy telling you about it. But then you go in and find out what actually happened, which was actually pretty intriguing. And then another one was helping this woman find a vase that her mother had made. And so, some of them are just really short and basic. I'm just kind of curious if they did anything interesting there, or if the bulk of it is just the story and the exploration and the sort of open world checklist that is common with these types of games. So there's some stuff I'm a little concerned about, things that I'm curious to see how they evolve over the course of playing through the entire thing. But in terms of timeliness of the review, it shouldn't take long. If anything, Mirage is kind of known for not being very long, with a 100% on this coming in at like 30 or 40 hours from what I understand. So I'll in all likelihood have this done by this weekend. But it's been an interesting start thus far. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. Hopefully you're looking forward to the full review. In the meantime, however, certainly let me know how you feel about this one, or what Assassin's Creed games you'd like to see me play next after this one, I guess. Which naturally means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.